Ben had brought aggro druid, and that really surprised me as well earlier. So I don't know. I've been unable to predict this one.
I was just going to say, I have to be a little bit careful here because I know Dan's lineup, and obviously it's all closed deck lists. He outright just told me.
Well, is this the lineup that Dan's been going around the whole time saying, I know the best lineup for this tournament? Because he had that word with me.
I guess so. I really don't know what I should and shouldn't say.
Well, I mean,
when you've got the information and it's all closed, like, I don't want to give away his game plan.
Oh, no, of course.
The Priest being banned is very interesting. One of the other decks that he's bringing that will probably be played this series is going to surprise everyone.
Okay, well, I'm looking forward to surprises, but game number 1 between Toastmonster and Dan is ready. Let's jump into it.
Danswf versus Toastmonster.
I like hearing Toastmonster in Scottish, but I'd rather hear Toastmuncher. I wish we had asked him just to do it, just for the meme. But game number 1 then. This is a big one for both players, and we're going to see how Dan is going to react. Now, throughout the season, during the online stages, Dan had a little bit of trouble with webcams. You also had trouble with webcams, I believe, Leroy. You just forgot to turn yours on, I believe.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
That's really special, man.
Got to press F4, apparently.
Oh.
and that helps getting it on. But so game 1.
It sounds like the sort of fake advice you get when you're trying to get help with a web page. Like, how do I fix this? Oh, you just press Alt F4. That's how you do it.
Yeah, that's why it took so long. I just didn't believe people.
So another aggro druid then, and again, I guess that is a little bit of a surprise, but we were speaking in the pre-ramble before the first series completely, and we were saying, well, it's going to be a toss-up between the aggro and Jade Druid. I thought we were going to see more aggro druid. Why weren't you expecting aggro druid then, Leroy?
Because it's sort of been out of the meta for a while now. Jade Druid has been putting in some good performances for popular streamers on ladder. Mr. Yagoop, for example, hit rank 1 with it, and I think it's got very good matchups against Priest and some of the aggro decks. The reason you might not bring it, though, is because you're going for a ban Priest lineup, so it doesn't really fit necessarily into making something that's coherent.
Sure, well, it's definitely been performing pretty well this tournament so far. The Jade Druids also did well in the first series, though, so I am looking forward to seeing kind of how that progresses through the next couple of days and seeing if which of the Druid archetypes ends up being superior.
Yeah, well, Dan definitely didn't expect that this would be an aggro Druid. He mulliganed away SI7 Agent when he had the option to keep it, and with a backstab in hand against aggro Druid, they're the cards that you want to keep. I think that he is surprised. You can see it in his face already. It looks a bit like he's quite angry about what's going on.
We talked about this extensively in the last series. It's that Rogue tends to be sort of the aggro killer at the moment because of those cards, the backstab, the SI7 Agent. That's why it's a good matchup against the aggressive Paladin decks, aggro Druid, etc., etc.
Yeah, and I think there's another aggro killer deck in Hunter, which has very recently become popular.
Yep.
It's a deck that could complete a quad aggro, sort of beat the other aggro decks type lineup, which some people, I thought more people might bring it, but it's obviously very recent, so it's a bit of a risk to take it without the hours and hours of practice that you could have put in beforehand.
Yeah, I was expecting aggro, 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 to be honest, at this tournament, and it was Dan who approached me, and he didn't tell me his lineup, but he was like, the best lineup that we could have for this tournament is these aggressive decks. And I was just like, well, you seem very confident about that. It does sound like that's what you're going to be bringing.
One thing Dan was confident about was the fact that Toastmonster had an anti-aggro lineup. So yeah, again, seeing aggro Druid, this is going to be a surprise for him. I don't think he was expecting to see any aggro from Toastmonster.
Which is very interesting, because yesterday Toastmonster was quite vocally saying, oh, I'm very scared of the aggro lineup. I don't want to face that. So I think it's a bit of smoke and mirrors.
It has been nice to come into the studio yesterday, see everyone just kind of playing a bit of Hearthstone and probably playing things they're not going to be playing today. The whole bait and switch, trying to convince everyone what's the meta going to be. It's been a really nice atmosphere at the studios.
It's sort of next level as well, because I don't think the deadline for deck submissions was until late last night, early this morning. So they had the whole of yesterday to sort of gauge what their opponents are maybe doing and even change their plan accordingly if they felt like it.
Now, in this matchup specifically then, Leroy, who would you be favouring, or what would you rather be playing in this scenario?
I think I'd rather be playing the Druid if they have Galactic Crawler, a tech card that just decimates you if you're trying to get an early South Sea Captain away. Otherwise, I'd say it's probably Rogue favoured, like if you ignore sort of hiccups in terms of tech choices and cards sort of blowing out early, and mulligans as well. I think that the Rogue has more power, it has the backstabs, it has the Vile Spine Slayers, it has the SI7 Agents to really just get bored better.
This is just one of those blowout turns from Toastmonster. Potentially, though, just both 1-drops plus Power of the Wild would give him this huge board that Dan just can't deal with.
Yeah, exactly. And he's missing the SI7 agent, which would have been very crucial.
But even then, like one backstab, one SI7 agent would not be enough to deal with even half of those cards.
He could do with something like a backstab being drawn next turn as well. Something that can, of course, combo with the Elven Minstrel, and it's just looking a little bit slow for Dan. And the thing is, you don't want slow against an aggro druid, because if that board can go wide, it can be so difficult for the rogue to deal with.
Yeah, I think it depends on what Toastmonster does here, actually. If he provides a silence target that's useful to silence, then it might go the other way. And he might be able to get some sort of leverage back on the board. So you can silence the Taunt, for example, get a nice trade with his Corridor Creeper.
We've referenced Duncan's power rankings a few times in this tournament so far. Dan is actually second on the list, so he's just considered one of the better players in the UK at the moment. I think most of the players downstairs have sort of been agreeing, you know, board control is the pro player here. The rest of us, we're sort of playing as a hobby. We're glad to be here. How do you feel about that, Leroy?
I don't mind it because, for me, I work a lot and I come home and Hearthstone is just a hobby for me.
Yep.
I just do the tournaments. I know that Ball Control is doing a year of Hearthstone. He's streaming. He's really keen to get a team that will represent him and take him to different events and to go to lots of tournaments. I know that Dan's quite keen on showing himself on the big stage and providing a lot of entertainment as well as part of that. It's interesting. Toastmonster's not to me unknown because I go to a lot of the UK community events. I go to the Meltdown events. I know who he is. I know who everyone here is, if I'm being honest. And it's a weird thing to hear sometimes. Oh, you're not very known. Oh, how do you feel about like proving yourself on the big stage?
And I suppose that could be a different scenario for you. You're saying that you have your job, you come home, you play Hearthstone, it's your hobby. But if the success started to rise, if you started to win these tournaments and going to more and you ended up going to DreamHacks and stuff, would that ever change? Is that ever a consideration for you?
Oh, well, it's the dream, isn't it? Like, to do something you very much enjoy more often is absolutely what you want to be doing. But for now, I'm happy to just play it part-time and come to these events and enjoy what's going on.
It's funny when you talk about how some of these players are less experienced with playing on stage, etc. Because again, talking to Ben yesterday, I believe he called out 3 names as being the 3 names that have not yet played on stage. 2 of those names are sitting right in front of us right now. And it's funny that they're the ones that got matched against each other.
Yeah, it's just luck of the draw.
It like evens it out a little bit. Whereas Cold Hands was the 3rd of these names, he just lost out to Ben. Toastmonster and Dan, you can't say it's a disadvantage because they both have the same disadvantage.
Yeah, and I'd say even, like, watching Cold Hands earlier, he looked pretty good on stage. I think the only person who might flop is Danswf, who's playing right now. I think he is someone who has a very loose mentality, he's very emotional, like me. And if things start going wrong for him, you might see his head in his hand, you might see him start to put his head down, to stare at the screen. To play with his forehead.
Careful, you might start getting flashbacks and then you just start crying, like a small tear will just drop down your cheek.
This is a potential... Okay, so Dan actually just going to develop the Earthen Minstrel without the combo. I was wondering if he'd go for the Shadow Step on the Captain, play the SI7 agent, and actually deal with a little bit more of this board, but he's definitely got himself back in an okay position, as long as Toastmonster doesn't get one of these huge blowout draws in the next couple turns.
Yeah, I think I like the Shadow Step play a little bit more as well. It very much depends on the draws coming up from the Druid. He has a couple of 5-drops in his deck, depending on the build. It could be 1 Cobalt Scalebane, it could be 2, like we saw with Cold Hands earlier. It could be Hydras that he's picked instead.
I really like the Shadow Step. You could have drawn into a Bone Mare, and then next turn you've got a Bone Mare that you can play, and that just, for me, could win the game outright. Now you're in a situation where, yes, okay, you can combo it with the SI7 agent, for example, but it might just be too late. That could have been a Savage Roar that was drawn by Toastmonster, and then that would have been curtains. Yeah,
I think also it's very important to get the Minstrel draw out as well. You want to be getting South Sea deckhands, you want to be getting Bone Mares in these situations where you can try and take control of what's going on in front of you. He's only a few turns away from potentially swinging this around.
The maths on this turn, just those mana cost numbers are so awkward. Is it just Earthen Minstrel SI7 agent? Yeah, looks like that's where Dan's going.
It's pretty much the only way you stay alive, right?
So Dan has played 2 4-mana 3/2s this turn, both of which did nothing.
Yeah, this game, yeah.
This game, sorry, not this time.
Yeah, he has, and it's not great.
Power of the Wild, that does generate quite a lot of damage. Not
he's 1 off lethal.
Just up to 8.
So I think you do it. The only, well, maybe you trade to play around Bone Mare. That's the consideration that you make. But he didn't have Bone Mare last turn. Oh no, he'd have played it. He wouldn't have been able to play it.
You were playing the Lich King in your day, right, Leroy?
Yeah, no,
So
Dan
that's an
definitely
out?
will be too as well, because Meaty, his
Yeah, of course.
his I'd say teammate, Meaty's teammate is playing it a lot and says that it's better than playing double.
Definitely Dan's practice partner. He was, again, quite vocal about how much he's been practicing with Meaty. Big shout out to him there.
So shadow stepping the Minstrel just to try and search for some answers. Of course, he could have cleared here,
He got
but
6 mana,
he
though.
would just be dead.
Well, the answer is to get the Swashbuckler.
What's that, Chain Gang?
You get Swashbuckler into Taunt or Saranite Chain Gang, yeah. I think I like Swashbuckler into...
I know you do, Leroy. I know you like your Swashbuckler, but Saranite Chain Gang is the sensible answer there.
He needed something, but unfortunately it is going to be a loss for Dan. So Toastmonster does start very well today on the live finals, and hopefully this won't be the kind of downfall of Dan, because this is something we have discussed. If he does lose, how is he going to react to it? Is he still going to be thinking about game 1 going into game number 2? It was actually, I remember repeating that about you, Leroy, several times a few seasons ago, but now it seems like Dan is the one who's going to have to combat his own thoughts here.
The downfall of Hello Leroy.
I think he is as well. If you look at him right now, he looks very stressed, anxious, gripping his forehead, wiping his nose. Oh, it's all going wrong.
All of the telltale signs of anxiety and stress here. And he needs to just put it behind him.
But I like what he did there. He tossed away the Swashbuckler. I mean, he immediately got 2 back, but he recognised that his 1-drop was Firefly. It is a better 1-drop to play in this mirror match. And he decided that he would be looking for the cards that are more influential in the sort of other turns. So Backstab, SI, Corridor Creeper, South Sea Captain, for example.
The thing was, we've gone from game 1 to 2 extremely quickly. I mean, if we, during the online season, usually between games 1 and 2, we'll have a few minutes just to kind of potter around. That gives the player a chance to just have a little think about that game, what went wrong, and then forget about it. But jumping straight into the second game instantly, sometimes it will just be kind of there on your head. But, of course, it's player's decision. If you want to queue, you can go for a toilet break if you want to.
Yeah.
Can I?
Yeah, you can. Yeah.
Great. See you in a bit, guys.
All right, so yeah, I'll just me and Leroy.
I think Toastmonster would have preferred this anyway, to be the way that it is.
Oh, absolutely.
And he's cut Prince Keleseth from his deck, and he's playing Galactic Crawler as well, which means that he's very much thinking about the aggro mirrors and winning them with this lineup of his.
Which makes sense, but at the same time, if you think that could have been a Keleseth being played on turn 2, that would have been quite nice to play Keleseth on turn 2.
Oh, well, yes, that would be preferable, but you can put 2 Galactic Crawlers in your deck.
This is true.
You can have your blowout turns anyway. You get your +1/+1 in your Galactic Crawler, and you probably snowball the game from there to win the mirror anyway.
I wonder if there's any other 2-drops that he's putting in then as well, because you now have that freedom. Is there anything else that's going to be a little bit of a surprise from Toastmonster?
Typically speaking, some people have gone for Eviscerate.
Eviscerate, yeah, that's the big one that I was thinking of as well.
Maybe there's a sap if he's targeting Warlock as well. I don't know if he necessarily even banned that or what he banned.
So is it Edwin turn now? Can he wait? That extra Firefly means there's so many 1-drops that just the longer Toastmonster waits, the bigger that Edwin's going to get. Simple as that.
He could go for a Tar Creeper here. Take it easy. It's a good anti-aggro card. It slows down what Dan's doing, and then he can follow that up with the Edwin.
Sure.
The problem with that is that Vilespine Slayer exists.
So you could argue that the sooner you play the Edwin, the better, because the less likely it is that it just gets dealt with. As we can see, Dan does have Spellbreaker, so there's actually no way to develop this Edwin and have it stick around. But there you go. I'm going to play it immediately as a, what's that, an 8/8, 6/6?
I think you're quite happy, though.
6/6, I
I think
thought
you're
so.
quite happy if a Spellbreaker comes down onto this, because that means a latter turn when a Bone Mare comes down, there isn't a Spellbreaker to get through that. It's only a 6/6 Edwin. It's not that big. It's definitely not the end of the world.
I think you're pretty upset. I think it's on curve. It's an on-curve Spellbreaker that's removed +4/+4 from your minion.
Yeah.
It's not an ideal situation to be in.
It sort of removed a win condition.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting that Dan's tech card, the Spellbreaker, has actually been more useful in the early game than the Galactic Crawler.
Yeah.
Which is not usually something that happens. It's usually the other way around.
So Firefly and SI7 Agent, of course, is an okay play here. I don't think you go for Deckhand. Are you ever worried that your opponent also has a Galactic Crawler?
No. I just don't think it's something that you should be expecting until we didn't see Keleseth, but Dan has already played this deck, and we didn't see any 2-drops in that game. So unless Dan was trying to hold them back and spring a surprise trap later, I don't think that Toastmonster will be considering the possibility of that.
I think he's considering just how to best get on the board here and whether Tar Creep is better than SI or not.
The thing about South Sea Deckhand is that if possible, you want to wait until you've either... Well, no, not Keleseth for Toastmonster, but he wants to wait until he's joined South Sea Captain, get patches out as a 2-2.
Yes, yes, you do. And you also want to trade your patches in a sort of a more favourable way in this matchup. One thing that Board Control, who obviously plays this deck to rank 1 legend for fun, says is that the way that you win the mirror is by having sort of beneficial trades with your patches, so using it in a way that creates tempo for you, which is not really what Dan's doing very well here.
See, I was wondering if Dan was also holding on to the Swashbucklers because he wanted to either draw Keleseth or draw South Sea Captain, play patches along with one of those cards, but nope, he's decided his hand is too clunky now for him to keep holding on to all of these pirates. He's going to just get himself on the board.
So I was going to say Dan is playing perfectly around a Galactic Crawler. However, now leaving patches on the board, he's not. And I was going to say, if he was playing around it, that would be very weird indeed. So actually seeing him go face with the patches now makes me think, okay, it's fine.
It's a relief. There's no underhanded stuff going on.
There's no mirrors that he's just looking.
Well, it's an interesting one because it might have been better to keep the dagger up if he looks at his draws and he works out, well, I can get outs from the Swashbuckler, I can draw into cards that maybe fill out my curve into the Bone Mare turn. Because ideally what you want to do is you want to be playing as many minions as you can on turn 6, taking the board as best you can into the Bone Mare. So it might have been a better situation to potentially try and save the dagger turn for the damage later on. I don't necessarily think that's true, though, because a 1-1 on board is probably still better than a 1-1 dagger most of the time.
And I was expecting some form of reaction from Dan, and I don't know if the shake of the head is, this is an awful card, why are you playing it instead of Keleseth? Or if it's just surprise, but something is clearly happening on his face right now.
I think he said, Meaty didn't tell me to play this. What do I do?
This has changed my game plan completely.
Look at all of the Assassinates in Dan's hand.
Yeah, so much removal available.
Blade of Cthulhu, just 9 mana. It's just a 9 mana Vastbind Slayer.
Yeah, he's got the perfect curve. He's got the 7-8-9. It's lined up. It's lined up in his hand as well. And if he gets to Bone Mare first, and he might get some favourable trade here as well.
Look at his reactions right now. Look at how animated he is.
I mean, if you know Dan, he's animated about everything.
It's
if
true.
you tell him I had Cocoa Pops for breakfast, he'd be like, "What? Cocoa Pops?
Why'd you do that?
Who
Who
has Cocoa Pops for breakfast?"
Me, he didn't tell you to do that.
Well, no, yesterday he sat downstairs and he's playing and he's just shouting the whole time. He's screaming, "My opponent drew a card on turn 1. This isn't fair."
He's been, honestly, a real character, and I've loved having him in Premiership. It has been great.
Yeah, I adore Dan as well, and I think that it's good to have emotional players on stream. I know that sometimes when I'm animated, Twitch chat don't like that. They like to spam. Why does this guy care so much? What's he doing? But it's just it's fun more than anything to show emotion.
Hearthstone is one of these esports where it's easy to have a lot of players that don't show that much character. And I think when we do have a lot of animation on screen, when we do have, you know, the bad guy, we've got Dan in this tournament, Amnesiac is well known as one of the big bad guys in Hearthstone. I think that's a really good thing.
Yeah, I think so too. May it go on longer as well. It probably is good for the longitude of the game.
Yeah, I agree.
Nothing survives that turn, though, from Dan. Actually, a really solid turn from Toast. It just plays perfectly around Bone Mare now, and this becomes very awful for Dan. There's no way he can combine any sort of combination for the Elven Minstrel either. Are you just playing a 5/5 on curve?
I think you're probably playing the Assassinate.
To assassinate what? A target?
I don't know. Assassinate a 1/1 and concede. Cover up the fact that you've got a Blade of Cthulhu.
And the beauty of this is that one moment, that Galactic Crawler just turned Dan's brain into liquid goo for just a second. And it has seemed to throw him off a little bit.
It has. And you can see how smug or how happy Toastmonster is as well.
Which will only be tilting Dan even more.
Oh, for sure. You can see each other as well over the top of the laptop. So when I in my earlier series, I got Keleseth. I just top decked it with Shadow Step. So I looked across at Deathsea. I made eye contact. I went, "It's happening."
Yeah, yeah.
And I think that helped in the series moving forward because the later games, he may have made some mistakes. He may have, you know.
I think it's something that a lot of people underestimate in Hearthstone as well, is that kind of intimidation factor. Of course, there are limits to how much you can BM your opponent. Of course, you're not going to get up and like wave in their face and be like, "Way!" and all of that kind of things. But just the little things, especially if you know your opponent, you're not going to try it against everyone. Not everyone is going to be fooled by your eyes and your eyebrow raises, but some players, they just can't handle it.
No, they can't.
And if you can't handle that, don't play against Pavel.
No, I heard he's very good at this, actually. He likes to sit at the angle and make the eye contact.
Literally just laughs in your face.
Yeah.
He just laughs the whole game. It's a very bizarre thing to witness.
I mean, Dan isn't out of this game yet. He can get some very good swingy cards.
Oh, like that one. Yeah, like that one.
Like Army of the Dead from his Lich King. I don't necessarily think this game's over.
It's not over just yet, but Elven Minstrel off the top does allow Toast to just draw through more of his deck, find more answers.
Find some of the good cards like Bone Mare.
Yeah, Bone Mare's pretty good. Of course, he would have loved a Vilespine Slayer this turn, but
that Swashbuckler is probably going to give him one.
As it does.
Yeah, usually.
I like playing it now as well before the trade, just in case you get anything influential. That's not going to be anything.
Cold Blood or a Sap for lethal, for example.
Yep. But I guess you just, well, you never leave Lich King alive at this point, of course, so you just power through it in the best way possible. Send as much damage as you can to face.
Definitely. And ooh, I don't know if there's much that Dan can do here.
It's just got to be Army of the Dead at this stage and hope that he can get some good stuff. He's got the deck hand he can throw down as well.
Well, he could, if he wanted to, he could Blade of Cthulhu the 5/5 and Toastmonster would be one-off lethal, so it'd require for him to have damage from hand, and one of them being a random rogue card, it would be not particularly likely. But I don't know how you therefore go from that point.
Yeah, I don't think you ever win from there. I think Army of the Dead has to come down here every single time.
But then what are you getting from Army of the Dead that can actually keep you alive? You've got one Tar Creeper?
There's Soundite Chain Gangs, there's Leroy Jenkins that can trade into the 5/5. Obviously then you've got the deck hand you can play as well if you can find an extra opening so that can kill something. There are cards you can get from that card that do give you a chance to win this game.
Yeah, I think it's probably the only way that he can win as well, moving forwards. Like, the Assassinate plays, the Blade of Cthulhu plays, your opponent just puts you to one and you've already played one Bone Mare. How likely is it that you get another Taunt and clear their board?
He needs to do it. If he's doing it, he needs to do it fast. Looks like he's not going to do it. Gonna give Toast one-off lethal, but it's not one-off lethal as we can see.
Yeah.
The Bone Mare is going to finish it off and allow Toastmonster to go 2-0 up against Dan, and Dan's still shaking his head here as well.
I really do think not playing the Army of the Dead there was wrong. I know we have perfect knowledge. We could see there's a Bone Mare. We could see there was a punish. Little clap there from Dan, very animated. But still, I think his highest percentage to win the game, not survive, but to win the game would have been the Army of the Dead.
Yeah, I agree with you as well. And it's about playing to win in these situations. It's not about working out how you can go another turn. If anything, Dan probably wants the games to be quicker just so he can take some time and get off stage maybe.
Yeah.
Cool down.
I want to take that toilet break now.
This is the thing, that clap, that sarcastic clap, like things like that, they give telltale signs to your opponent that you are frustrated.
Oh yeah.
And then your opponent is just going to elevate their emotions as well, because if you know you're already in their head, then your eyebrow raises, your glances, you just do them more often just to tilt your opponent even more. I mean, surely that is in the book of Hello Leroy.
Oh,
that's
for sure.
Page number 1.
If Toastmonster ropes every single turn now for this last game, he'll beat Dan no matter what Dan draws. It could be a 99.1% matchup. Toastmonster will win simply by roping every turn.
Giving each other a little sarcastic thumbs up there. Or sarcastic from Dan, not so sarcastic from Toast. I don't know. I've not been in this position, so I can't speak from experience. But if I was Toast right now, I'd be feeling almost a little bit awkward. Like, this guy sitting in front of me actually hates my guts right now.
What position are we talking about? Just winning a game of Hearthstone or being on the stage?
Oh, damn.
Because you competed last season, didn't you?
Let's just jump into the game. Let's not talk about me. We're not here to talk about me. We're here to talk about these guys. Whew, it's getting hot in here.
So just the Priest left for Toastmonster then, and then you'd feel in a pretty good position going into a 2-0 lead with Priest, would you not, Hello Leroy?
I like that hand.
I would, and I did.
Yes.
Even though I, at the time, was facing a potential sort of soft target Priest lineup, I have a feeling that's sort of what Dan's doing as well here. He's probably trying to bring decks that are all slightly good enough against Priest, or as well as hopefully winning other matchups. He's jammed the Rogue again, and this is something that never gets talked about, but if you're playing sort of Conquest and you start, and you're frustrated, there is a tendency from players to sort of just jam the same deck over and over again, like, oh, I'm going to win eventually, oh, I have to win eventually. And that's what he's doing here, and it's probably bad for him. It probably gets him into a sort of very one-way sort of thinking.
It used to be known as the strategy that less experienced players do. I think years ago when Conquest only sort of came out as a new format, I think it was Firebat that was saying, yeah, less experienced players, they jam the same deck over and over again until they win it. More experienced players can predict that and counter it.
Now, it happened in your series. Danswf played the J-Druid over and over, and actually I think it has benefited him, because now he goes into the lower bracket and he still hasn't shown anything except his J-Druid, right? So, similar position now for Dan. If he thinks this series is over, if he's saying, I can't beat Priest with all three of these decks, I'm just going to play Rogue. If I lose, then everything's still concealed. They won't be able to mulligan against me easily in the lower bracket. So there is some reasoning behind it. Whether that is the thought process that he is actually going for, that remains to be seen.
No, I quite like that as an explanation for it. I think it works better when you're 2-0 down. I think if you've just gone 1-0 down, there's obviously a massive chance that you can still win the series. I think it's probably better to switch the decks, switch the way that you're thinking about the game, and start afresh, basically, because if he goes into every game and he's like, oh, I'm just going to mulligan for South Sea, oh, I didn't get South Sea, oh, I got backstab, oh, blah, blah. It's very, you stop thinking so creatively or so critically about what you're doing, and that's when errors come into play.
Now, Leroy, tell me how Toastmonster wins this matchup, because I've got to say, it frustrated me that he played the Cleric there, because I'm looking at the Pyromancer, I'm looking at the Circle of Healing, and I'm thinking, oh, he could draw half of his deck with these cards. But obviously, against the Rogue, it's a little bit different. Like, the Cleric needs to be there to defend him. What did you think about that?
I think that he should have seen that Dan has kept 2 cards there.
Yep.
It's very likely that they keep the backstab as not just a combo. I know he's going second, he's got the coin, but not just as a combo activator, but because it does deal with the early Cleric.
Yep.
I think he should have waited as well.
Yep.
What you win this game literally by drawing your deck, playing Raza, playing Anduin, killing your opponent, and he's given up some draws.
That's what I thought. Just wanted to check with you that I'm not crazy, but the combo is just so good.
It's nice, isn't it, having a player nearby when casting? Because if you have any doubt about yourself, you just ask them. Players are always right.
Well, I wouldn't ask me. I'm not that good. I just sometimes I win. Sometimes I win.
Sometimes. What is it? 1 in 7 now at live finals?
2.
2
in 7.
2 in 7.
Yeah.
2 in 8.
Huge.
No, it was 1 in 7 before
7
this
losses.
Oh, wow. Okay.
2 wins, 7. The other win was against a chap called Vejovic. Shout out to him.
Ah.
Yeah, beat him on stage at Comic-Con.
Oh, that's nice.
Good job, man.
It?
Yeah, I remember.
Anyways, while we've been babbling, Dan had a pretty good turn.
Yeah, he's done the old Keleseth, Shadow Step Keleseth.
Good old play.
And it probably means that he's going to win this game.
I agree.
Toastmonster hasn't drawn cards and he hasn't got his board clears. He will need to draw a very sort of specific set of cards.
This turn could have been Cleric, Pyromancer, Holy Smite, Circle of Healing.
Yes, exactly. And then you do that, and then you draw into the Dragonfire Potion for next turn. You draw into the Raza for turn 7 or the Psychic Scream, and everything sort of comes together then. So looking back, he might regret this game. It's also an interesting turning point for Dan, because up until this point, he might have been thinking, oh, I'm so unlucky, oh, I never get the right card. So he's hit the Shadow Step and the Keleseth and the Captain as well, without drawing patches, because he obviously drew patches one game. It could be that if he's such an emotional player, sometimes it's nice when you go, if you go 2-0 down, you get that bit of luck, starts going your way. It could be that this could be a turning point.
It does work both ways. Like, if you are if you're so invested in your cards and all of that, you can think the game's against you, but sometimes you can actually ride that wave of success and emotion and actually believe that the game is on your side, as the perfect draw comes out for Dan as well to allow him to combo with the Elven Minstrel, and he now has the opportunity to coin into Bone Mare next turn as well.
Yeah, he'll go coin Bone Mare, he'll go Corridor Creeper, Vile Spine if there is a Raza coming out.
They are 2 good draws from Toastmonster back to back.
Ah, this is an interesting game now. It could be
we have a game of Hearthstone on our hands, boys.
It could be quite close. I'd say the Rogue edges this.
Yeah, I agree.
I think there's just been so much power early on from Dan that he should just be able to smash through Toast before Toast could even think about playing the combo and kind of just going off nuts. And if
Dan does win this game, it's very much in the balance at the moment, then Toast will be sat there going into game 2 thinking, oh, I wasted my Raza Anduin draw. I had such a great opportunity and it all went wrong.
Opting to trade there.
So it's to play around It's to play around
Dragonfire?
only Dragonfire, because it doesn't play around Psychic Scream, obviously.
And there is Dragonfire as well, so actually perfectly calculated from Dan.
And you know, if he had drawn a couple of extra cards with his Cleric, then this game could have played out fairly differently.
Yeah, I think we will be definitely circling back to that turn 1 play. I mean, it's an interesting one. Because he had the Pyromancer, because he had the Circle of Healing, that's why you keep it. But if you didn't have those cards, I could understand playing the Cleric.
Of course. It's just a little bit greedy, and I think that's what Toastmonster would have been thinking. He'd have been thinking, look, I need to put stuff on the board. The Rogue's going to be aggressive. It's my job just to outlive him until I get my big stuff. That's why he played it. But just when you've got those cards together, like Leroy said, the effect that they would have had on this game is so big that, yeah, he'll be regretting that one.
Yeah, so if he plays the Swashbuckler here, there's a couple of outs for lethal, I think. So I'm trying to work it out. Mind Blast, I guess.
Mind Blast would help.
I think you go for it anyway. You accept that he's probably going to be playing the Death Knight or another board clear next turn, and you try and play fewer cards and hold on to some sort of reload afterwards.
A Great Healing Potion not really going to do too much. I guess if this game was to go very long, then the Great Healer Potion might help.
Yeah, and if you ship it all face here, I think you have lethal next turn. After he tries to clear board.
Yep, you've got your SI7 agent, you've got your Stealthy Deckhand as well. And why not put a Corridor Creeper?
This just doesn't matter. Well, if you don't lose to Dragonfire Potion, and if you don't lose to the Death Knight, then why not just put more stuff on the board? It means that Toastmonster has to play these cards, and then he loses regardless.
Well, he should have gone face with the dagger, because it's an actual break point.
Yeah.
If this turn is Dragonfire Potion to clear, Dan will now be 1 damage off lethal with the dagger Southsea SI7 play, I think, if my maths is correct.
Southsea's got 4 attack, right?
Yes.
4, 6, 7, yeah.
What is in
So
one's will?
I think that was potentially a mistake. Would he have made that mistake if it had been 0-0 and it just started on stage as well?
Was it your game against Dan? And did you play Dan in the online season?
Yes, I did.
Who was it who attacked with the dagger and took 1 extra damage and then they died because of it?
Against me, he attacked with the Druid hero power.
Yes.
He had the Death Knight up and he attacked with the hero power behind like 600 taunts on board, and I top deck Soulfire to just sort of pop him in the face for 4. It was quite lovely.
It is crazy how that 1 point of damage can just make or break not only a game but a series in some situations. But Toast is going to go for the Shadow Reaper Anduin rather so than the Dragonfire for the clear, leaving what, 6 power on board, just 3
13
now.
damage in total, I think.
Well,
now less.
I came back from my series just now, and Boar Control was watching the next one. He said that he has never, as a rogue, beaten the Death Knight hero power combination from the rogue, from the priest. So, don't know how I feel about Dan's chances now moving forwards.
Well, this is going to be tough for him. He can push damage now, but Toastmonster still has Dragonfire Potion to follow up to clear this board.
Toastmonster doesn't have any healing, though, at the moment. And that is an issue, because bit by bit, Dan can just kill him.
Yeah, Leroy top deck is live. I don't know if there's anything else in his deck that could have done it. I think it might have been worth holding on to the Southsea deckhand, mostly because you've already got a big enough board that he has to clear it, and secondly because it would make Bone Mare another out as well for lethal. So that could again be something that's worth looking at for Dan after the game. So
Toastmonster is on a clock, right? He's on 4 health.
4 turns, yeah.
Yeah, but he's got Lyra, so he's probably working out how to get, and he's got Radiant Elemental as well. So he's probably working out how to fit it all into a nice turn as soon as possible.
He has to clear the board this turn, there's no question about that. Dragonfire Potion almost definitely going to come down. I guess Organize Circle could, but then you're saving the circle for the Lyra probably.
Yeah, he'll be counting whether he wants to ping the Acolyte or whether he wants to ping face, and whether that's sort of a source of damage that matters, or whether drawings matters more.
Yeah, there was some consideration to Okanai and Lyra plus the Circle of Healing as well, just to get some damage on board and beg the question of your opponent of removing it.
Oh, there you go. All right.
There you go.
Toastmonster wins.
And Dan would have won if he hadn't have played the Southsea deckhand last turn, which is very, very interesting.
And now Toastmonster going to be glad that he did not develop that Okanai. Because if he did Organize Circle last turn, then he would not be able to heal with this Greater Healing Potion. He'd be killing himself.
So Dan's best attempt at sort of making it through this game is to, obviously, you dagger face. You have to sort of go for this clock. I think it's to kill the 1-1 without it drawing another card. So you use the Vile Spine on it. or the Shadow Word Horror. So
Okay. Does Dan not need to just play the Bone Mare this turn, though? Just go big?
Well, I don't think anything ever sticks. I think that was what Ball Control was saying, effectively. He was saying, at this point in the game, nothing you play sticks to the board.
I like this play.
So he's going for his only out now, which is Leroy. I think he's played both Swashbucklers. He's played both Southsea deckhands as well.
I think Twitch chat should get ready to clip this when when Toastmonster plays the Gale Healing Potion, because we might get a reaction from Dan.
Yeah, there's quite an annoying pillow actually on that side of the desk,
right.
the chair. So it could be that he's sat there quite uncomfortably. The pillow's digging into his back.
Shadowy
Can launch it across the room.
There are a lot of props there. I saw that you were carrying your sack around.
Yeah. No, I have quite a heavy sack.
Yeah.
It's,
Oh, thank you.
It's quite a workout actually carrying that.
I can imagine. It was impressive. And now Lyra does come onto the board and you can start doing crazy things and just hoping to get more spells. And Dan throws his hands aloft as he knows he is probably hurtling towards that lower bracket unless something rapidly changes with how his cards are drawn.
Can you think of anything that would rapidly change?
No, I can't. It was kind of an open-ended question. I'm hoping someone could.
He hasn't drawn the Lich King yet. Maybe Lich King into Army of the Dead if he actually plays it this game could be a...
Yeah, I like
Can
that. I like the Lich King out.
And now we see the demise of Dan SWF as he spams Incredible and falls into full the full downfall. A nice thumbs up from Toast as well.
That is
incredible.
That is incredible.
Yeah.
Well, I wonder how many times Dan will say so lucky and how many times someone else will have to go, why'd you play the Bone Mare? No, not the Bone Mare. Why'd you play the Southsea?
The benefit for Dan is that lower bracket. I mean, back in your day, Nick, there wasn't a lower bracket, was it? When you lost?
Yeah, there was lower bracket.
Oh no,
sorry, yeah, I just lost in those as well. It was pretty brief. It was a brief encounter with the lower bracket from me.
But there is
Flying
fallback option, and I think that's what's important for Dan here.
And Dan was saying to me earlier today that he believes that he might actually lose to Toastmonster, but he still thinks he's going to win the tournament. So at the time, he was saying he doesn't mind too much if he loses this first game. He believed that Toastmonster would have a lineup that's favored against his, although he was thinking that it was going to be an anti-aggro lineup. So hasn't quite gone as he expected, but still, he should be able to pick himself up after this, take a break, come back later, and make his way into the final day.
Well, that's interesting because it doesn't actually matter. If you go 1-1, you end up in exactly the same position in the bracket. So that could be that Dan was just predicting that he loses one of his first 2 games. What it does mean now, though, is that he needs to win 6 in a row to win the tournament. It's not a great place to be in.
That's definitely not an easy feat, especially if you're not playing up to standards as well. There have been a few minute decisions in this game from both players, actually, that are a little bit questionable. I'm sure when they look back on them, they might just have a little bit of doubt about the plays, but Toastmonster evidently is going to be the happier of the two. Of course, the game isn't over yet, but it is pretty close.
Well, this is the situation where, I don't know if you watch Ball Control stream much, but he says, oh, it doesn't matter, nothing I do matters, it's all irrelevant. Although he definitely should have been hero powering their Toastmonster when he was playing those spells because it cost 0. And he definitely shouldn't have given Dan SWF an out here with
Leroy Shadows?
Leroys and Shadow Steps and things. That was a bit suspect.
The hero power does take time, though. That can be one of the problems. When the rope is burning, when you're playing Lyra, the animation actually does take a few extra seconds if you're playing the hero power.
That's true. I think he should have found lethal, though. I feel like I feel like he's got a lot of cards in hand, and he definitely dealt some damage to minions there, and it should have been. It doesn't.
I think I was rambling at the time. I didn't even notice, but. Those are the simple things that you cannot afford. Like, I mean, literally, Leroy's Shadow Step would have been lethal for Dan, right?
Yeah, well, the thing is, he should have just finished the game. It turns out to not matter, but he should have finished the game then.
Well, Dan does concede, and he has to concede to the lower bracket as well. I'm sure there will be frustration, but at the end of the day, both of these players are friends as well, as are all of the players.
Dan did go straight in. It wasn't quite caught on stream there, but he did go straight in with the handshake, leant across the desk. Always great to see, even from the bad guys of the tournament. So, sad start for Dan, but